Morning. Good morning. Welcome. Good to see you all this morning. We have a very informative program that's going to really teach you and help you feel confident as you pursue your job hunt. Please put in the chat where you're joining us from. We like to know who's checking in, who's in the house, as they say. So we encourage you to do that. And I'll introduce myself. I'm Miriam Diamond, and I am a program director of Encore Boston Network. And also, when you enter where you're joining us from in the chat, if you could say what kind of job you're looking for, that would be helpful. Portland, Oregon. Oh my gosh, it's early there. You get credit. Extra credit. Thank you for joining us. And if you, again, want to tell us where you're joining us from and what kind of job you're looking for, so we know what the range of job hunters are in the house. And you don't have to be up as early as our friend from Portland, Oregon is, but we're happy to see you no matter what time it is in your time zone. So we have Florida, New York. Wow, we're really covering a lot of this country. Boston. And what kind of jobs are you looking for, folks? Any suggestions? Looking for, wow, okay. We got Massachusetts, financial sales. Okay, so we got the finances. And anything else in addition to finances? Project manager. Okay, project analyst. Okay, great. Good. So thank you all. Biotechnology. So now it's coming in. Marketing. Okay, data hygiene. Strategy. Excellent. So thank you all, and please keep them coming. So yeah, so Encore Boston Network, we help people age 50 and over make a difference and have more fulfilling lives through work, and that's what we're focusing on today. We also focus on service and social action and life events, as we did last week. You can learn more about us where you signed up, which is encorebostonnetwork.org. And this event is being recorded. We will send the follow-up email link and the slides as a PDF to all attendees. So if you missed something, you don't have to scramble really quickly or ask us, what was that again? You will get it and you'll be able to review it at your leisure. If the closed captioning will be helpful for you, please turn it on. Throughout the program, you're welcome to add comments, react, submit questions. Sometimes we have professionals in the field who have some resources they want to share, and that's always welcome. If you have questions, please write question before it, preferably with capital letters, so we can easily find it when we get to the Q&A section at the end of this program. So as you all know, today's topic is finding a job when you have gaps in your work history. We want to help job seekers successfully market themselves and land good jobs despite any work gaps or long-term unemployment. So today we're hoping that you will realize a way to destigmatize any employment gaps and understand employers' perspectives, what they're looking for, so that will help you market yourself better. You'll be able to positively present your work history and skills to prospective employers, and that includes not just resumes, but LinkedIn and interviews, and help you realize how you should spend time when you are between jobs, when you're experiencing a job gap. So this is going to be an interactive presentation, and as I said, we'll have Q&A at the end. So I'm excited to introduce today's expert, who is Cheryl Alexis. She's Learning and Development Partner for MassHire South Shore Career Center. Cheryl knows what it's like to work in a variety of fields. She's been a human resources director, and she also has a background in law. She's a graduate of Harvard University and University of Chicago Law School. So I now welcome you, Cheryl.
Thank you, Miriam. That was such a kind introduction. It's great to see everybody. Can you hear me okay? Great. All right. I am thrilled to be with you all today, and we're going to talk about how to deal with gaps in your employment. Anybody, have gaps? Anybody running into problems with gaps? We're going to talk about how to deal with them on your resume, on LinkedIn, and during interviews. So anybody who's been to any of my workshops before knows I love interaction. There may be too many of us for you to unmute, but you can always put your comments in the chat and we can go from there. So without further ado, let me just share my screen and let's get rolling on, oops, here we go. Dealing with gaps in your employment. So the first thing is gaps happen, they're understandable, they're predictable. What kinds of gaps are you concerned about? What gaps are you wrestling with in your job search? Please put that in the chat. My good friend Miriam is going to help me read those comments, but I like to hear what my audience is facing. What's going on with, what gaps are really troubling you or presenting challenges for you?
So we have someone already who said they've been laid off a bunch of times and now are dealing with some health issues that make it hard to job hunt. We have elder care for someone else. Another elder care, how do you, for 15 years, so if you've been taking care of someone for a long time like that, what do you put on your resume?
Right.
So a lot of elder care we have here. Looking for remote work, which, you know, we hear there's less of that than there was a few years ago. Someone who wants to maybe unretire, and getting back after COVID. So these are some of the things I'm hearing.
And those are some of the things that happen to a lot of different people. You know, I was caring for my mom until she passed away a year ago. I get it. I have a child. I get the parenting thing. And some of you mentioned injury, disability, sickness. Those can create gaps. The key thing to remember is there is absolutely no shame in having them. Many of us have them, but they don't help you when you're job hunting. Why is that? Put yourselves in the shoes of the employer for just a minute and think about why are they reluctant to see beyond your gaps? Why might they be unwilling to hire you? After all, family medical leave is available not only at the state level, but the federal level. So why do we get penalized so much when we have these gaps? Anybody putting any interesting answers in the chat, Miriam?
Yeah, someone said that maybe they think you don't remember how to work, even though you've been caring for elders and that is work.
Yes.
That maybe they haven't done enough productive activities. They know if the person's going to quit very easily.
Yep, absolutely. Those are all legitimate reasons. In fact, employers are busy, some are lazy. They like the fact that another company has vetted you and basically said, yeah, this person is okay. So they like to see ongoing employment and increasing responsibility. They think that makes you a better candidate. They also question whether you're reliable and committed to your job. And, you know, as one of our attendees mentioned, despite the fact that you got up and cared for your aging parent day in, day out, week in, week out, 24/7, 365, they don't think you want to work. Sometimes they believe your skills are not current. And we'll talk about this further, but this is particularly true in the area of technology. So if you have not kept those technology skills current, that is going to feed into their stereotype. They don't like people to take time off, even though we have a legal right to. Labor's expensive. They don't want to pay for extra staff. Absences create burdens on the managers, who often have to step in and do the work, or your co-workers, and they don't like that. The other thing to remember is there is this tension between what Wall Street wants and what Main Street, those of us who are workers, want. There's not a lot of compassion for employees these days. There's pressure on companies to deliver to shareholders, and this is what publicly held companies frequently perform or face. I remember when I worked at Reebok, the way they managed Wall Street expectations was to have layoffs every year. So, there were always gaps. So the burden is on you to show that your skills are current. But gaps don't have to be a deal breaker. They're less taboo than they used to be. Many people have them. The economy has changed. COVID created a lot of issues as well. You'll remember I mentioned a minute ago that your field of expertise matters. So if you are in IT, which changes like overnight, employers are concerned that your skills may not be current, and this means you may have to look at retraining. If you're in a field that requires a license, like nursing, or practicing law even, you may have to show that you've kept that license current. HR is becoming increasingly professionalized, and they want to see the SPHR credential. So it's up to you to figure out how can you keep current in your field. We're going to focus on several things today. Preparation is key. Get your elevator pitch going. If you know what an elevator pitch is, put that in the chat so that I can see you're on track with me. You want to anticipate concerns that employers may have so you can plan to overcome them. And then you want to be confident and self-assured going into the job search process, because you want to be confident in networking, interviewing, everything that you're doing. If at all possible, use your gap time constructively. So you can do volunteer work. There, just, go to Dr. Google and search, where can you volunteer? The AARP has great opportunities for volunteers, and there's no age restriction for volunteers. Any of these things will help you keep current, keep active, and guess what? They have the added bonus of helping you network. How many people know it's hard to meet new folks at your house? If you stay at your house, okay, maybe the prime delivery guy, but he's going to come and go in 30 seconds. So if you get out of your house and do something, anything, this will help you make contacts. With publications, maybe you can write articles. A lot of nonprofits, animal shelters, houses of worship, food banks, all of these places need volunteers. So get out there, meet people, do something constructive, and you'll also feel better about yourself. So let's focus first on gaps on your resume. And you first have to remember what a resume is. It is a marketing tool. It is something that showcases the value you bring to an employer. It communicates professionalism. It is not, for example, a history of everything you've ever done. And a lot of people fall into that trap where they write a history. This is what I've done, and this is where I've been, and this is where I've worked. That is not going to help you either with gaps or even if you don't have gaps. It's not just a list of passive job duties that you've had. It's not low impact. And I'm going to show you some resumes that are and are not high impact. One of the issues that you may face on your resume is, how can you disguise gaps legitimately? So if you worked at XYZ company from March 2012 to February 2020, and then you went to ABC company from June 2021 to the present, you are broadcasting on your resume that you have a 15-month gap. Now, again, you could explain it, you could talk about why that gap occurred, but better yet, why don't you disguise the gap? So you just take off the months and you write 2012 to 2020 and then 2021 to the present. This is still accurate, it's still true, but the recruiter or the manager looking at your resume is going to automatically think you worked till the end of 2020, and then you took time off so that you could get ready for the holidays with your grandchildren or your children, and have the Uncle Festus and Aunt Morticia over for the holidays, and then you started your new job after the holidays. That's what they're going to think in their head. Now, that may not be true, but you know what? You're not lying, but what you're doing is taking off one more issue that they can question you about. Now, obviously, if you get in the interview and they ask you for specific dates, you're going to give them. But by then, you're already in the interview, and that's what you want. If anybody has questions, again, Miriam, feel free to interrupt me and put your questions in the chat.
I just want to say that someone mentioned they use ChatGPT to improve their resume.
I think that's a good idea, because people do make a lot of typos and grammatical errors in their resume. You don't want to do that, but ChatGPT is not enough. And I'm going to show you why in a couple of minutes. Some other resume tips. You've got to customize your resume for every job. It may not be an extensive customization, but every job is different. Every company is different. You cannot submit the same resume for every single job. And I've gotten that. I have 25 plus years of experience in HR. I can tell when you do it, and I don't like it. I automatically assume you are lazy, which is not a good thing. It may not even be true, but that's the assumption that a lot of people make. HR people, if they're looking for a widget maker, they want to see widget making on your resume. So if you don't have that, boom, your resume gets thrown out. You also want to use a summary, profile, you can call it whatever you want, highlights, select achievements, but it's a snapshot at the beginning of your resume that draws the reader in and showcases your skills. Because if you don't sell me in the top half of your resume, generally I don't get to the bottom half. And I certainly never get to page 2. If I don't like what I see in the top half of the resume, that's it. You also need to showcase your proficiency with computers. So if you don't know Word or Google Docs, your resume is going to reflect that. That's not going to help you. You can use a smaller font size for the dates. Don't bold the dates. Those are ways to maybe detract from the dates that may show you have a gap. The other things that date you, don't use an objective. I know what your objective is. It's to get the job. Don't waste my time telling me that. Same thing with references available on request. Old school. I know you're going to give me references if I ask for them. So don't waste my time making me read this stuff on your resume. Don't use AOL. It showcases that you're from the age of Fred Flintstone. And even now, don't use a home address. You can just put your email, your phone, and if your LinkedIn profile is consistent with the job that you're applying for, you can put that LinkedIn profile on your resume. If it's not consistent, leave it off. You also want to show accomplishments, not just activities. So instead of just saying responsible for sales, you're going to say increase sales by 30% to 900,000 annually. Same thing with these other examples. The left side of this chart is very passive. It doesn't leave me with an impact. It really leaves me, the employer, with the question, so what? You worked at XYZ company for 30 years, so what? What difference did you make? What value did you add? And that's what the right-hand side of this column showcases. I believe one of the best ways to cover gaps or other issues with your resume is to use a hybrid resume. Most of us write resumes that are traditional. They're in reverse chronological order. But as I mentioned before, if your most recent job is widget maker and you're applying for a job for widget maker, that works. The reverse chronological resume will help you. But if the job skills you have were 2 or 3 or 4 jobs ago, the best way to showcase them is with a hybrid resume, because I'm not going to read through those first 2 or 3 jobs to get to job number 4 or 5 and say, oh, that person's skills match what I'm looking for. So you want to use a hybrid resume. Show the recruiter or the hiring manager real quickly what value you add. So you're going to use a summary or a profile instead of an objective. You are not going to list everything you've ever done since 6th grade. Don't put all your work experience down there. Only put down what's relevant to the job. And that's why when I teach my resume class here at MassHire, where do you think I tell people to start when they're preparing a resume? I'd love to see those answers in the chat, Miriam. Where do I tell people to start?
Okay, we'll give people a minute to think about that.
Yep.
So someone said relevant job descriptions.
Yes.
Someone said a summary, and then a career highlights section, which outlines potential essential skills. Where else do most of you start? Skill list. So we got a couple of votes for skills. Any others? Where do you like to start with your resume? I think they don't. Okay, summary. So that's what people are saying. The summary, the skills mostly.
The first person had it right. You start with the job posting. If you can get a job description, great. If you're just working with the posting, great. But you start by looking at what the employer wants. You don't start by putting down what you have. You start by focusing on what they want. In fact, when I get ready to write a resume for a job, I have a huge computer screen, or you can have 2 side by side. That works really well. On the left-hand side, I have the job. And on the right-hand side, I have my resume. And the goal is to make my resume reflect as much of the stuff in that job posting as possible. Too many of us write a resume in a vacuum, meaning we're just writing a history. When people ask me to help them revise a resume, I will not help you unless you bring 1 or 2 jobs you're applying for, because that's what I'm basing your resume on. And I'm going to show you that in a few minutes. Remember, I love the hybrid resume. I think it covers up a lot of sins like gaps. But a lot of recruiters still prefer a traditional format. You can list jobs below the summary and profile, and that'll meet that need. And the other caveat is that if you're applying for a company that has an applicant tracking system, the hybrid resume may or may not get past it. So you got to network and know where you're applying, what tools they're using, customize the resume for that. So let me show you some examples of resumes, but let me ask you first, how long do I take to review the average resume? Now remember, I got 25 years of HR experience. I've looked at thousands of resumes for hundreds of jobs. How long do I take?
I'm seeing 7 seconds, 8 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, 36, less than 10, less than a minute.
You
So we're
guys
kind of
are,
all over the place.
we're all over the place. Here's my answer, people. 15 to 20 seconds. You have spent days and hours and worked with Miriam and Doug and Mass Hire and perfected your resume. You spent hours, and I look at it 15 to 20 seconds and I'm like, yes, you're moving on to the maybe pile, or you're like 85% of the resumes that I see and you're in the reject pile. Now, some recruiters will read your cover letter first. Some recruiter, I always looked at the resume first. If your resume wasn't good, I never even got to your cover letter. But both of them have to be good. Both have to be customized, because you don't know who's going to look at what first. There are two schools of thought about whether you should address gaps in your cover letter. One is that it does give you a chance to explain what your gaps are and where they are. That's not a bad approach if you like that. Personally, I like the second approach, which is sell them on your resume. And then when you get in an interview, you can project enthusiasm, confidence, and you can talk about yourself and overcome the gaps. So I prefer a well-crafted resume that gets you to the interview, and then you explain what your gaps are. But this is not the case with everybody. If you feel the need, you could try it both ways and see what gets you results. And if you're getting results by explaining it in your cover letter, fabulous. If you're not getting results, take it out of your cover letter and focus instead on your skills. So let's take a look at some hybrid resumes. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a second and pull up some other documents here. And in the meantime, Miriam, feel free if there's any questions to let me know while I'm pulling this up.
Okay, I love your questions, everybody. It's helpful, again, if you preface it with the word question, because there's so many comments and replies to Cheryl's questions and interactive portion here. So I'm looking for the first question here. So if I don't answer your question, okay, what is considered a significant gap? Is there can we talk, you showed how to, if it's within a year, you can kind of hide it.
Yep. I would say more than 6 months is a significant gap. So, and in this case, you saw in my example, I had a gap of 15 months, but I was able to hide it. So that's a big gap, but you'll get the interview in all likelihood with a resume like that. So that's not the worst thing in the world. But once they see a gap of more than 6-8 months, it does get to be a bit of a challenge.
And another question is, you were talking about training and that people could take training while they're experiencing a gap. How do you feel about using YouTube videos for that?
I think YouTube videos are one of the best things since sliced bread. They are free. Everybody and their brother has stuff on there: how to interview, cover letters, how to do whatever, everything, how to fix a leaking toilet. When my toilet leaked, first thing I did was go to YouTube. I love YouTube videos. Just remember, take it with a grain of salt. And before you like and subscribe, make sure you really like that person, because otherwise you're going to get every single notification they send. And they'll do 50,000 of them. Other places, Coursera, LinkedIn Learning. Trying to think, there's a couple of others that skip my mind now, but that I'm not thinking of. But I love YouTube videos.
Great.
Okay. Gap of over 6 years. Should I give up? Absolutely not. If you give up on yourself, so is an employer going to give up. If you believe that no matter what the size of your gap is, you have something to contribute, you will find an employer that believes that too. You just have to keep looking. Absolutely. What are you going to do? Go to the cemetery and bury yourself? No, don't give up. Guys, you know, everybody knows the story of how many times Thomas Edison tried before he successfully created the light bulb. What was it, Miriam? Like 1,000? No, 1,000. Come on, think about it. Think about a toddler. How many times do they try to walk before they get it right? 1,000,000. And you know what they do? Here's the key. When they fall down, they laugh at themselves and they pick themselves up and try again. Now, they have something you may not have. They have Aunt Susie and Mom and Dad. Come on, little Buford, you can do it. Come on. So you need to find some cheerleaders in your life who can say, you can do it, Jimmy. Don't give up. The very next time you're one step closer to what you need to do. So absolutely don't give up. Let me show you some of these hybrid resumes. This is a template that I'm going to share with you. I developed it here at MassHire. Buford Job Hunter. Remember, I've taken off the street address. There's room for a LinkedIn profile. But you'll notice at the top of his resume, it says profile. This is that snapshot that I talked about that gives the HR recruiter or the manager a picture of what you can do. Now, in this case, I called it a profile. You can call it whatever you want. Select achievements, highlights, summary, executive summary, professional summary. I don't care what you call it, but the idea is get that snapshot at the top of the page, draw my attention in to your accomplishments, which are right here. Then I cover work experience, but notice what I do, everybody. I call it related work experience. You can call it relevant work experience, relevant professional experience, select professional experience. Why do I do that? Because I'm telling the recruiter, hey, I've done a lot of different things, but I'm going to respect your time, and I'm only going to show you the things that relate to the job you want to fill. So I'm already telling them there are going to be gaps, but you know what? It's because I respect your time. So you'll see here, there are gaps. Who cares? I've already said by putting related or relevant or select that there are going to be gaps. And then I get to education, technology, etc. So this is Buford, and you will get a copy of this after our presentation, if you like. This is a sample gap from a website called JobScan, and JobScan is great for helping people with tailoring their resume for applicant tracking systems. In fact, it will let you match a job to your resume for free for 5 jobs, and it'll tell you, is it a good match or not? And it'll tell you how to fix your resume to make it a better match. This is a really expanded hybrid resume. They started up here with a career summary, then they go to skill sets, then they go to professional accomplishments, and only at the end do they give work history. And a lot of people, especially HR, they want to see work history because they want to make sure you weren't an axe murderer sitting in Bridgewater State Prison. They want to do that. So, so you can give it to them, but notice you've already sold yourself in the top part of the resume. I kind of think this is a little bit redundant in here, but this may help you if you have a huge gap in employment.
Excuse me, Cheryl,
Absolutely.
the job scan resume, we don't see that. Are you trying to show that to
Oh,
us?
I'm sorry, job scan, it's here in at the top where it just said, this is a website called Job Scan. In fact, let me make a note to send you that
Great.
because it's a great tool to help you compare your resume to what's likely to come up on an applicant tracking system.
Thank you.
Now, I want to show you an example of an expanded hybrid section and extreme customization. So the first thing, can everybody see this resume that starts with education UMass Amherst? Is that visible, Miriam?
No, we're still seeing Buford T. Job Hunter.
Hold on.
Okay.
Fire it up again. The wonders of technology, right?
Yeah, juggling multiple things.
All right. Han Solo. So if you can't tell, you can tell I like Star Wars. This is Han Solo's resume. Han Solo actually worked for me in this job. Can you see it now, Miriam?
I see one with the top crossed
It
off.
says, yep, the top is crossed off and it says Education, University of Massachusetts Amherst.
Yes.
Perfect. Han Solo actually worked for me when I was at Harvard. I was the HR director for athletics, and he worked for me as an athletics, human resources, and finance assistant. So he worked for me and the head of finance as well. He didn't really have finance experience. Why did we hire him? Because somebody recommended him, had gone to school with him at UMass and recommended him as a temp. I liked his job. I hated the resumes I was getting. I needed to fill the job, so I hired him as a temp, knowing that eventually he wanted to pursue his field, which is athletics, events, and operations in higher ed. So as you look through this, what do you think of his resume? It's not bad, right? He's got great credentials. He majored here in kinesiology and minored in business. And he went to one of the premier sports management programs in the country, which is at UMass Amherst. Everybody see that? And then he worked, he's got some work experience here at Harvard. He worked as a carpenter. He came out of school when we were in the middle of a recession. So you do what you have to do to put food on the table and pay the bills. And that's what he did. Admirable trait. But the job he really wants relates down to it's the third job on his resume. Oops. I didn't want that to happen. Here we go. Where he worked at Boston College as an intern doing athletic events and operations. Same thing here at Virginia Tech, where he was an intern. Those are the jobs he really wanted. Now, people, and up here was his address, which shows that he's clearly from the Boston area. So Han Solo came to me and said, Cheryl, help me with my resume. He said, I want to apply for a job in athletic events and activities and operations at Duke University. Now, people, where is Duke University?
North Carolina.
North Carolina. Specifically, it's in Durham, North Carolina. Now, what do many people in the South think of those of us in the North?
Arrogant, aggravating, rude,
rude, arrogant, Yankees. You know, they don't like us. And conversely, what do we think of people in the South, folks?
Prejudice.
nice,
Nice. What else?
Lazy.
Lazy. And when we hear that Southern drawl, what do we really think, folks? Go there. What do we really think? if people had, remember the Terminator with Arnold Schwarzenegger? Remember the line where he says, "I'll be back." What if he had said, "Well, I'll be back, y'all"? What would I see Miriam laughing already. What would our reaction have been? We would have been on the floor laughing because we hear that Southern drawl and we think they are not as bright as us. It's terrible. It's not true. It's a stereotype, but that's what we think. I remember my first trip to North Carolina, got off the plane in Raleigh, went over to rent a car, and I was with my ex-husband. We met a clerk and to get a car, and she said, "Well, how y'all doing? Oh, I see you're from Boston. How was your flight? What's the weather?" And I'm like, "Look, just give me the car. Give me the car. I just want the car. Give me, what do you have?" And it took me a while to slow down and adjust to their pace. And I've actually come now to love that pace because they actually take time to get to know you. Whereas those of us in the North, sometimes we're like ships in the night, pass each other, never even stop to say hello. But I said to Han Solo, your resume broadcasts that you are a Yankee, and then your first two jobs don't even relate to what you want to do and what the job is at Duke. So, people, here is what I did to his resume. Han Solo. Can you see this? Can everybody see Han's resume?
I think you need to
stop
unshare and share again.
Stop share again. Boy, the one.
I think for each time you change.
Yeah, the beauties of Zoom. Oh, well, here we go.
You can also click share screen and then it will share whatever is on your screen, not just one document.
Which is really good because that's what I do with Teams. Thank you for that. So share screen. There we go. So here is what I did to Han's resume. Hopefully everybody can see this.
Yes.
Great. Guys, this is what I call a major customization using the hybrid format. First of all, note up here, I will pay my own interview expenses. This is why you don't want to put your address on there. One of the first things hiring managers do to screen people out is they look at people and say the people out of commuting range, they're not even going to look at. They don't want to pay for relocation, and they don't want to take the chance that the commuter train is going to break down. They'd rather you live close to the job. So don't give them a reason to screen you out. Take that address off. Or if you are applying for a place far away, tell them you'll pay your own interview expenses. Companies do not want to pay for interview or relocation expenses for entry-level or even mid-level professional jobs. That's just not what they want to do. Now, here is the profile. I took this language right from the Duke job posting, and I highlighted Han's experience in game day operations, logistics events, and sports and facility management, because that's what they wanted. They don't care about HR and finance. They don't care about carpentry. This is what they want. And you'll see I captured their attention in the top half of the resume. Next major customization, and this is where I'm trying to tell you guys to go. I put related employment history. Now, I put Harvard in, that's where he was, and like Duke, it's a school that values academic excellence, both on and off the playing field, so I put that in there. And then I put only the relevant jobs. Now, you'll see gaps all over this resume. Here's a gap between Virginia Tech and BC. Here's a gap between BC and Harvard. But I tried to get around it by saying I'm only going to tell you the relevant job history that I have. So then education. Now, if you talk to most HR people or career coaches, they'll tell you, well, always put your most recent degree on top. Who made up that stupid rule? Why do you think I put JMU first instead of UMass? Why did I do that?
Because it's more southerly.
Because it's in the South. That's why. And I want the person looking at Hans' resume to say, he's got experience in the South, he's lived in the South, coming to the South is no big deal. He's not one of these typical Yankees who's not going to like the South. Now, and then I just finished up with some technology skills. People, there were 260 applicants for this job. And I got Han Solo an interview with this resume. They ended up hiring somebody from within, but he was one of just a handful of people, I think maybe 15 people that they interviewed. So this is the power, I think, of a hybrid resume. And this is also why you don't need to be afraid of gaps. Focus on the skills that are relevant to the job. And I think you can get an interview no matter, you know, what you have been doing in the past. While I transition back to the slides, are there any questions?
Yeah, so there's a question, and I think I saw an answer, but when you did redo Han Solo, you still had his job listing, you still had months. But one of the jobs was within the same year, so I'm guessing you couldn't say 2011 to 2011, right? Is that why you did that?
You know, I could have. I wasn't focused on it at that time. So truthfully, you know, I could have fixed that. In this case, I was so focused on getting on the other aspects of the resume that I just did not do it. But you could have done that. Plus, those were internships. Internships are typically a year. You know, that's how he explains the gap. Anybody who's had an internship or volunteer experience, short-term doesn't bother the employers as much as when you've been with a company, you know, let's say 10 years, and then you have a gap of 5. So, but yeah, I could have taken the months off.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great question.
Thank you.
Great question.
And everybody wants copies of these resumes, so I hope you'll be able to send them when the follow-up.
The Han Solo one is probably not, but the others, absolutely.
Great,
So
great.
I hope that makes sense to people about the hybrid resume, the power of the resume, hybrid resume. So it's something at least to try, but it also shows you how much work you need to do to customize the resume. So when you go to Indeed or ZipRecruiter, and if you apply on ZipRecruiter or Indeed, normally you're uploading the same resume. Doesn't work. Go to Indeed and ZipRecruiter, find out where the jobs are, and then go to that company's website and customize your resume. I'm seeing some comments, Miriam. Anything you want to mention?
A lot of comments, but I want to make sure we don't have much time, and I want to make sure we get your content.
Oh my word.
Let everybody know that we will be forwarding. I hope you don't mind being inundated with emails, Cheryl.
No, that's okay. I may just send them to Mass Hire. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm just thinking Mass Hire, you know, people can maybe make an appointment if they're in Massachusetts, right, to meet with you?
They can email me, they can come, anybody can come into our Career Center. Mass Hire in Quincy is at 1515 Hancock Street. We're open 8:30 to 4, Monday through Thursday. So there you have it. Let me move on to LinkedIn because, you know, and let's just go right to my LinkedIn profile. And I'm going to show you, share screen. Here is my LinkedIn account. I'm going to show you a few tips with LinkedIn, and actually the interview is probably the easiest thing because I've already got messages laid out for you that you can use. So this is my LinkedIn profile. A couple of things that you want to do. First of all, you want to look at your profile, and you can customize it with a background picture. It's something that shows your ability with technology. All you have to do, oops, sorry, nope, I don't want to do that. Get out of here. You can click on the pencils to edit, and you can see I can then edit my background photo. Come on, here you go. This is the one that I used. I pulled this from canva.com, canva.com. And Miriam, that's another resume website we should refer people to. Now you can see I can change my photo. Now, people, here's a couple of things to note. I love the generic ones, but everything else that LinkedIn is built in my opinion, is really highly political. They're making political statements. So if you want to do that, you can, but remember, your recruiter may not share your political views. So therefore, I recommend using one of these neutral ones or go to canva.com. And then all you have to do is edit here to get out of LinkedIn. Now, here is another key aspect of the profile. Open to work, right here. You can indicate that you are open to work, what kind of work you want to do, job titles, where. You'll see, I'm hoping to go to Florida too, get some sunshine. My brother just moved to Florida and I'm down there. I'm like, get me out of the snow. Start date, this says casual, I'm browsing, and contract part-time, it's recruiters only. You can edit this, and you can cross off job titles you don't want to be, you're not interested in, add anything, specify the kind of workplace you want, specify locations. You could put Hawaii. You could put remote, and then immediately I'm actively applying, types of jobs. And here you can open it up to everybody on LinkedIn or recruiters. Now, I have a job, so I'm only going to look at something serious. But if I were looking for a job, I would check this box and say, I'm open to all LinkedIn members. You know, let them look. Don't be afraid. The last tip, the few tips I want to add. Make sure that your profile is current. And then when you add jobs, don't put every job you've ever done here. Just put a few that are relevant to the field you want. So for example, if I put down Labor Relations Counsel so people can see that I at least practiced law, but I could take it off, click on the pencil, and check this out. I can hit edit, and I can delete the experience right here. Now, LinkedIn prompts you to give the month and the date. Guess what, people? Instead of putting the month down, just put the word month. Don't put August or June, just put the word month and watch what happens. When you come to my experience, it just has the years. So that is why that is how you can take months off, close gaps on your resume. But you'll also see, I don't really care about the gaps that much. And I'll still get hits with recruiters interested in my experience. I'm going to move on to interviews because I've covered everything in LinkedIn. But if there are questions, Miriam, let me know.
I think, Cheryl, I would prefer that
Yep,
you actually
move
share
on.
your information with us. We have a ton of
Yep.
questions, but I want to make
Got
sure
it.
there's enough time. So
Got it.
I'll
I
give that
got it.
priority.
All right, let's jump back. Boy, we just need to make this. I'm sorry. I just enjoy this too much. That is the problem. I am having too much fun. All right, so let's go back. We talked about, here we go. We talked about resumes. I showed you what's on LinkedIn. And then in your interviews, The first thing is, be happy if you get the interview. Don't get nervous. Be happy. That means they like what's on your resume. It's a good sign. Be honest, but you don't have to go on and on and on and share every unflattering detail. Be succinct, logical, be clear. Show how your experience help you grow, not just professionally, but personally. You'll see employers love people who have resilience, flexibility. That is why they like varsity athletes. The one thing you should put on your resume, even if you played varsity sports a million years ago, is your varsity athletic experience. It's a conversation, or you're an Eagle Scout. It's a conversation point. It shows resilience. Practice your what you're going to say so that you sound self-assured and positive and you won't be flustered. Let your passion, enthusiasm for the job show. This is one area where I think older workers fall off. The younger workers can sometimes, or younger people can sometimes show more passion, enthusiasm. We have to do the same thing. Now, if the interviewer starts focusing on your gaps or gets off track, guys, this is where I recommend the same principle we would use with a toddler who's fiddling with the knobs on the stove. It's called distraction. So they start asking you, you answer, you give me your answer, and then you say, by the way, you were mentioning that you want somebody who knows ChatGPT for this job. Did I tell you that I went to a great webinar that Encore Boston network provided on ChatGPT, and here's what I learned. This can help you. Guys, what have you done? You've answered their question, but you've distracted them to try to get them back on track. Now, it may not work with every interviewer, but it's sure worth a try. These are some answers. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on these because you'll get them in the slides, but the first one is if you had a leave and you're focusing on the fact that you wanted to do right by the employer. You knew you'd be in, out, in, out, in, out. That's not good. So you took a break and you're emphasizing that you're ready now to focus on your career. If you take time off for childcare, emphasize that they're independent and you have backup care. If you wanted to go back to school, here's an answer. If you got fired or laid off, use the middle quote, you know? And finally, this is a real issue, and I've experienced it, where I've worked with a boss who was Attila the Hun, and we just butted heads, didn't see eye to eye. You never want to bash a former employer or a former boss. Never, never, never. It will backfire on you. So here's the way you say that. Our company was under new management. We didn't see eye to eye. Our expectations weren't aligned, period. You don't have to talk about what a witch that boss was. Don't go there. Don't go there, even if she was. Here's an answer if your family relocated. Or when you got laid off, you ran your own business. All of these things they're clear, they're succinct, and you end by focusing on your enthusiasm for the future. So one other thing, remember I talked about a gap less than 6 months is not always even a big deal, or you can cover it on your resume. If your gap is lengthy, let's say it's 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you have to refresh your resume. You cannot let the last thing on your resume be 10 years ago. So that means you have to add something, a recent skill that you acquired, a recent certification, recent experience. I personally don't care where you learn to use Excel, if it's at a paid job or a volunteer or you're at home running your budget. I just care that you're proficient with Excel. So you want to put, acquired proficiency with Excel, got a certificate. The other problem with gaps is that people know technology moves at warp speed, and they want to see that you have kept up. When you get to an interview, don't pull out a flip phone. When you go to an interview, don't ask for directions. You got to use a GPS or go to Quest or something, Google Maps, anything. Don't ask for directions. Own your history. Don't try to hide it, but turn it into a positive. Employers do love people who take the initiative and solve problems. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. I will ask anybody who is a member of Mass Hire, meaning that you have an 8-digit job seeker ID. You can go to any Mass Hire office, doesn't have to be Quincy. Make sure you either put your job seeker ID in the chat or you email it to me, because for purposes of unemployment, attending this workshop will also count as a job search activity. But I need to know who you are and that you're here. Miriam, I'm sorry if I went over.
I couldn't stop you. There was too much good information.
I'm
Cheryl, thank
sorry.
you so much. I want to let everyone know Cheryl actually custom built this for us, this program, this presentation, and there's just so many good questions. So if people do have questions that weren't answered, who do you suggest they contact, Cheryl?
Well, put it this way. I don't know about you. I'm willing to stay on for a few minutes and answer some of the pressing questions. I'm happy to do, if that's okay with you guys. I don't want to do anything that's not in your protocol.
It's okay with me. I don't know if our tech person is okay with it. They can let us know. But while we're figuring that out, I do want to officially end, and then we can see if we can stay on. But I want to thank you so much. I want to thank Kendra, our technology expert, for making all the technology happen. I want to thank you all participants for your comments and participation. I know this raised so many issues and so many questions, and we all got such wonderful ideas. If there's anything you want to put in the chat, something you're going to do differently, please let us know. That's a good way for us to really assess.
I'd love a copy of the chat, because I'll use these questions. I'll write a book, and that's how I'll answer them.
We will save the chat. So please stay tuned to your emails. You're all going to get an email next week at some point with this video, with all the information that you got. And so you can look at it again, because again, tons of information, very encouraging though for all of us. We want to hear that you all got great jobs as a result. And please look at the Encore Boston Network website. Next week, we're having a program on creating the next meaningful chapter of your life. I hope for everyone here, that means a great new job. Again, thank you all. And Cheryl, if you are willing to stay on, I can
Absolutely.
go through the chat. Anybody has questions, please put them in the chat. We don't want you to unmute, because we still have like 50 people online and everyone will be talking over each other. But thank you for offering to stay, Cheryl. I think I haven't got any message that we can't continue a little bit longer. So I'm going to check the chat and see what kind of questions. And again, if you write question before it, it'll be easier for me to identify. I am scanning from the top. So a former employer HR said job dates on resume need to match exactly for when they reference check after an offer.
Well, first of all, that's a reference check after an offer. So you got the offer. So then, I would go ahead and tell people, fill out the application or whatever they want and tell them exactly what you had. But you've got the interview, you've got the offer. If an employer is really going to hold gaps against you, you have to ask yourself, is this the place I want to work? Are they so rigidly focused on, oh, you started August 15th, not August 3rd? If they're that rigid, I'd be like, later, goodbye. That is just so freaking picky. But yes, once you get the offer, have at it. Be honest.
And can you do anything with LinkedIn to create something hybrid, or does LinkedIn have to be reverse chronological?
I don't know the answer to that. Everything I've seen is reverse chronological. So the answer is only put down the experiences that relate to the type of job you're seeking. And unfortunately, let's say you're seeking a job, one in like me, one in HR and one in athletics. When I apply for the job in athletics, I would take off a lot of that HR stuff. I would. So you're busy editing, but then it fits. I will tell you one bias that I think HR people have that I think is ridiculous. A lot of times they're biased against entrepreneurs. And I have seen, like my boss, that's why we didn't get along at Harvard and we butted heads. I said, if somebody's an entrepreneur while they're unemployed, that's a great thing. They took initiative. You know, it's hard work. She said, no, they don't really want a job. I'm like, they applied for it. How do you know? But there was a lot of bias against people who ran their own companies. So you have to play that by ear and figure out whether it's a plus and you include that in your job seeking, or it's a minus and you take it off LinkedIn, you take it off your resume.
And what, if someone has been long-term unemployed, so they haven't worked for a while, and they are doing, like we said, YouTube videos or taking classes, how do they list that? Do they list that most recently under experience? How do they list that so it doesn't jump up that they haven't been in a job for 2 years, let's say?
Here is my bias. Now, this is my strong bias. You'll talk to 10 other people, they'll give you 10 different answers. I always think you should put the relevant stuff first, because that is what I'm focusing on. Can you do the work that I need done in this job? Now, other people, no, I want to see where you've been and make sure you're not an axe murderer at Bridgewater State Prison. So this is why it pays to network, because no matter what you put, if you network, you will find somebody who can get your resume into the hiring manager or recruiter, and your resume then goes to the top of the pile. So, and after you apply, that's when you step up your networking. You don't, I applied, let me wait to hear. No. Double your efforts to get into that organization, to find the person who can walk in and say, oh, I see Amy. Amy's resume is going to be at the top of the pile.
Now, do you recommend anything like a transition section or something? I guess this would be more, again, if it's a more recent break period, because I think if it was a while ago, like 5-10 years ago, it might not be an issue. But if it's recent, should there be a transition section or what I've been doing lately section or anything?
Well,
like
less than 6 months, I wouldn't. Even less than a year, I try to kind of camouflage it. But if it's been like 5 years, then you might put a transition section that talks about the certificate you earned in digital marketing, or the Excel certification that you got. You know, or that you updated your license as an RN, something like that. RNs, you don't even need to do any work. They need, well, that's not true. That's not true. RNs, if you've been out of that field for a long time and away from it, the new requirement now is they want RNs with a bachelor's degree. So before, you could go get an associate's degree and be an RN. And if you stayed working, they would often grandfather those people in, so you didn't have to go back to school and get the bachelor's. But that is what you might have to do. And there are companies that will pay for tuition assistance. You may not like the job, but get the benefit, get that credential. It can help you. Massachusetts is the most highly educated state in the country. 50% of adults in Massachusetts have a bachelor's degree. So if you don't have one and you're going for a professional or exempt level position, you're just at such a disadvantage. Yep.
And we heard last week, and I just want to, with Age Friendly Employer Forum, and I just want to reinforce this, that the community colleges are offering a lot of free job training for jobs that are in high demand. So if you didn't catch that, if you weren't there, or if you have forgotten because a lot's been going on since then, please check that. We'll be sending that video out again, but please check the information about Massachusetts community colleges and maybe what other states. I know we have other states represented. Cheryl, we could go another hour, but I don't think our staff can do that. So if they don't have answered questions, what do you suggest? Should they contact you? Should they?
You know what? Come into Mass Hire.
Okay.
We have every Monday morning from 9:30 to 11:30 an open job coaching workshop between my friend Karen and me. Now, those of you, it's better to sign up in advance. And you know what? I'll include directions in the email about that. But
Okay, great.
that is a great way to talk. And I'm usually here every Monday. There may be sometimes when I'm not, but I have a coworker who's here. And that's the best way to bring some of these in, some of these questions to me personally, because I love them. I just think I'm so happy now. I'll float on air the rest of the day. So thank you all. I'm looking at
Thank
your
you.
comments. Thank you so much for having me. And
Thank you again, Cheryl. Thank you all. Again, we have a program next week on the next meaningful chapter of your life, so it's totally relevant. So I hope to see you there. Again, thank you so much for creating this program for us, Cheryl. You can see how helpful it is and how much people really needed it. So, and I should tell people as a background, Cheryl decided to do this because she and I were messaging during a previous workshop of Encore Boston that was about job hunting. And we said, we need this. And obviously we were right. And we can't thank you enough.
thank you all.
So thank you
These
all for being
comments.
here.
Thank you all.
Cheryl, we love you.
Thank you.
We
Jill.
do.
Thank you. Thank you.
We
I
do.
appreciate
35
it.
people still hanging in there. That's great.
Wow. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
we